the next moment, the next day isn't promised, right? And it's not promised for me, but it's also not promised for you, or whoever. Hey guys.
Hey.
Welcome back to another Crockpot Convo.
Yes.
So, in our previous episode, we were talking about purpose. We were talking about the journey through life and how, like, we just kind of arrive at our purpose through our experiences. So, today we're going to talk about an experience that we can all relate to, a shared experience,
Yes.
that we've had that has, contributed to us becoming more purposeful in the way that we live. So today we're talking about grief.
Yes.
And I sound all chipper and excited, but it's a somber, sobering topic. So I guess we can start by talking about the grief that we share in common. I mean, I think we have a couple different losses that we've shared. But the big one, they're all equal, but the
one that we're gonna start off with.
one that we're gonna talk about.
And the one that we all share.
Yeah, the one that we all share.
Also the significance of today.
Yes, definitely. So I guess the big one for today.
Yes, the big
Yes,
one
the
for
big one for
today.
today.
The big one for today is the loss of Shawn Crockwell, my brother,
Our uncle.
and the impact that has had on us individually, collectively, as a family, and even like the community.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So June 10th, 2017, we were all minding our business somewhere.
Yeah.
Minding our business somewhere in Bermuda, and we got the news that Shawn had passed. And I know we all have like our own like experience with receiving that. I know I found out. I was just home getting ready to go to the grocery store, and a friend called, and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And it's like, "No, Renee, like, you need to call your parents." And I'm like, "My mama's here. What are you talking about?" And he proceeded to tell me that there was this rumor that, my brother was dead. And I'm like, that's crazy, because obviously he's not. And when I looked at my phone, it was like all these messages, chat groups. And so that's how I found out initially that, my brother had died. I know you guys have had your own experience. What about you?
For me, I was with a group of people and they were just talking about him. And I didn't think anything of it because it happens all the time. He's a public figure, people are always talking about him. And like they were saying the wrong things. I was correcting them like, hey, no, that's not even what he does. Or like,
Yeah.
and then one of them said he committed suicide and he hung himself. I said, what did you just say? And I don't even know if I waited for her to respond. I just grabbed my phone and went outside to call my daddy. And I saw that I had a missed call from my daddy.
And Daddy is like,
And that made my heart sink, yeah.
And Daddy one day is like, when Daddy just calls him out of the blue, it's like, what happened?
Yeah.
Because our Daddy is very like purposeful. Like he calls us with a purpose. So continue.
Exactly. So I just freaked out as soon as I saw the missed call. And when I called him, I was already crying while the phone was starting to ring. I'm like, Daddy, is this why you're calling me? Because it was like, I was hysterical already because Daddy called me and I missed the call. And I could tell that he was trying to hold back tears, and that's hard. Just, my daddy doesn't even cry. I haven't seen him cry that often. And he was like, I didn't want to tell you like this. I was like, it's not true. But I mean, that's how I found out.
Yeah.
And it was the worst experience of my life.
Definitely. Like, so, because my friend told me, and because it wasn't like a person that I felt should be telling me this, I was like, whatever, this isn't real. I called Shawn and I left a voicemail like, call me back because this is silly, you know. And then I called his significant other, and you know, her just the way she answered the phone, I just knew that it was true. And the sad part was that my mom was outside waiting for me. And when I heard from her that it was true, I just screamed and, you know, forgot that mommy was outside. So, you know, my mom's having this experience now, you know, of something's wrong. And I couldn't tell her. I could not tell my mom. Your experience is a little different.
My experience was, I think, yeah, it was much different. So that morning I had went to church, and actually the service that day, I think it was God preparing me for something, because that service was on Abraham interceding on Lot's behalf. And I actually remember having a thought in the service was that I was thankful for that my papa, like that I had patriarchs and, you know, grandparents that prayed over us, so that kind of intercession was in my heart. And I never go to St. George's Church, but I was living in St. George's at the time. So when I got home, I took a nap, and then I woke up to my phone ringing, and it was Daddy. And so it was really random. So I answered, and I was like, "Hey, Daddy." He was like, "Come to the homestead. Do not check your phone. Do not go on social media, just come to the homestead." Like immediately I knew something was wrong. And then I was driving at an appropriate speed.
Appropriate or inappropriate?
When I was driving at an appropriate-ish.
Appropriate for the occasion, I guess.
Because it got worse. Like when I was driving there, my uncle Kenny called, and he was like, "Chelsea, have you heard?" I was like, "Well, Daddy told me not to answer the phone. I don't know what he's gonna tell me. Bye." And like he was like, "Just go." So like when Uncle Kenny called me, I was like, I just knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. So sis turned on her double blinkers. I think I did about 80 flying from St. George's to Southampton. Like I literally, people were pulling over
To let you go
to let
by.
me go past, because I was on people's right hands. Like I didn't know. I just had to get to the homestead. And then when I got here, there was already like non-family members here. So there was like a gathering, there was police here, and I'm like, what? I'm like, what the actual heck is going on? And then like I came up the stairs, Daddy pulled me aside, and he was like, there's a room. Well, we know that Uncle Shawn isn't with us anymore. And how it happened, we're not sure. But like Uncle Shawn is no longer here. And literally like in Daddy's arms, and I think Sweetie came over to me, and I think you came over to me too. I just like broke down. So I was like, what do you even mean? And it was just, I think like the most painful part is it's completely unexpected. It just feels like that unexpected. And I think anybody who has lost a loved one, just out of the absolute blue, it's like the rug is just snatched, and you just don't even know. And then I remember my old boss calling me, and she's like, "Chelsea, I'm hearing rumors it's okay." Like the fact that so many people knew
before us
was,
or at the same time as us, like you know, that was so hard for me. Like, so, you know, I tend to be a dramatic person, you know, a little bit. So, you know, it was dramatic. But what I always think about, and I still struggle with, like, feeling regretful, was, you know, my mom hearing me screaming, you know, and then me not being able to tell her, and her basically figuring out, like, she called Daddy, and once she heard Daddy answer the phone, she knew, okay, it's not my husband. And I remember her saying, like, call the boys, telling my daddy to call the boys, you know. And thank God for my best friend, Samantha. She helped me get my composure, got me in the car, and we came home here. And your dad, you know, Mark, came shortly after. And I remember saying to him, you're gonna have to do this. You're gonna have to tell our parents that, Shawn's dead, because, like, I'm not doing it. It was like, not many things stunt me, but that did. That was rough. So, I mean, we could talk about that day for a whole episode.
Yeah.
And there's so many things.
Nuances.
Yeah, there's so many parts of it. But, that moment of that initial moment of grief, that initial moment of loss, I feel like your life changes in that moment.
Yeah.
And there's so many different types of grief that, we might touch on as we chat. But that grief of death, it's final. Whatever we believe about, what happens after death, whether heaven, afterlife, reincarnation, whatever you believe, that moment that the person is physically no longer with you is final for this experience that we're having right now. And it's like, whoa, you know?
And honestly, so the year before 2017 and 2016, Salida and I, and Renee adjacent, experienced a sudden loss with our cousin, Ezzy. And I remember that day very, very vividly as well. I was in my job office, and I got a call from my mom saying that Ezzy had been in a very bad accident, and that he had been bleeding from the nose and the mouth. And I knew just from a science perspective that is a sign of internal bleeding. So I just knew that, like, it just wasn't good. And then, I was just very hysterical then, and I called Daddy, and Daddy had said he was going to come to you in person. And I just remember trying to get to the hospital, and I remember being in the room with our family. Like, I think what was really tough about Ezzy was that, like, there was, like, hope, like, especially because we're a faith-based family. Like, it was like, God, you gotta pull through, please go pull through. We had, like, this hope. But then the doctors came in and was like, unfortunately, his lungs won't stop filling up with blood, and you need to go to the ICU and say, like, your final words. And we was like, got it, like, God, how could you, like not, like, pull through, what is this? And I remember just us being in the room with Ezzy, and Auntie, at first it was like, it was words of course, like, yes, Ezzy, you could pull through, you got this, but then it turned to, let's sing Azra's favorite hymn. And I remember us being in the room, getting a little choky. I remember us being in the room and singing his favorite hymnals, and then it switched to, it's okay, Ezzy, like, get in God's hands, Ezzy. You can go, Ezzy, like, you don't have to fight. And then I just remember being like, it was the first time I had ever experienced, like, a peace beyond understanding, because, like, I witnessed my loved one, like, take their last breath. But the sting of it, like, I truly believe, like, I was going to see him again. So, like, the sting of it wasn't there. And I was just in awe of Auntie's strength, because she kind of gave her, like, what Ezzy would have wanted us is to come, like, together, to not let this shake our faith in God, and to be more steadfast so that we could see him again. But when I honestly didn't believe that I could experience anything more painful, and then Uncle happened, and I was like, I didn't know it was possible to grieve that hard and that same pain. I never wanted to experience it again, but here we were.
Yeah, Ezzy was definitely a blow. And it's crazy because it was very sudden, but then, like you said, we were singing, and I felt like he was gonna pull through until we started singing. We also.
My bad, guys. That was me.
It was you. But it was like, then you got to the part where he says, we have to fight.
Although we have to die. The room is silent.
Everybody choked on die. Like, wait, are we gonna say this? But I just feel like God was kind of preparing. Like, when I said that, I was like, oh my gosh, like, he could die right now. Like, this is like real.
Reality check.
Because he had been in accidents before, even on the racetrack, and we scramble. We were always in the hospital with the boys, right? We're due from like 5, broke his femur bone. So in the back of my mind, I was like, he's been in an accident, but he's gonna recover. And I remember everybody was afraid to tell me at first because I was pregnant with Sadie at the time.
You was close to being due.
Yeah, I was 8 months pregnant. Daddy came to my job, and again, Daddy showed up, and I knew
Something
Poor
was
daddy.
wrong.
something is wrong. Why is my daddy at my workplace? Went to my boss, was like, my dad is hurt. Like, and my heart was like, I was like, I don't know why he's hurt.
Yeah.
So I went and spoke to him and he said, can you come? I said, well, let me just talk to my boss. But immediately when he said that, like, I started to cry. And so it was like this back room, and I went in this back room and I was like crying. I was like, my dad is hurt. Like, I knew something is wrong. She's like, relax. He told me everything's okay. Like, she literally had to calm me down so that I wouldn't cry. She was like, nothing's wrong. I said, I feel like someone's dead. Like, I was like, I feel like something major has happened. And she was like, nobody's dead. So then when I went out there, he took me in the car drive to the hospital. And that had happened, but
Yeah.
I mean, whew,
It's
it's crazy experience.
It's really crazy because I think from both of those experiences, the biggest thing that kind of changed my trajectory was you really don't know when,
You don't know.
when your time is. Like, as he just experienced his 21st birthday, January, and he passed February. And Uncle was
47.
47. And so it's just like, we really don't know when it is our time. And so time,
Or when it's our loved one's time.
Yeah.
You know?
and like I just even remember just feeling like I don't have enough pictures of Ezzy, like I don't have enough pictures of Uncle. I felt like memories became so precious because you don't have the opportunity to create more.
Yeah.
And that's a really good place to like segue into like, you know, aside from like the experience, that initial experience, because like for me with Ezzy, you called me to tell me. And of course, like I wasn't as close to Ezzy as you guys were, and like I would not even make it out as if I was. But I was like, what? You know what I mean? Like, you don't think about somebody dying. You know what I mean? Like, you, who, I don't know, maybe some people do, but I don't think about, you know, one day so-and-so might be dead, you know? I never, ever, not even for a moment, thought about or pictured a life where my brothers were dead.
Yeah.
You know, I never considered it. The only people I thought about, like, dying was grandparents. And I know that my parents, you know, one day that time will come. I never have thought, like...
Old age never prepares you for the moment, but it prepares you to be prepared.
Yeah, it's like...
Ish.
It's the natural order of things. It's you know, rationally, you know, logically, we know that, like, our parents are gonna die one day. You know what I mean? And it's not really taboo to say it or consider it because that's the natural order of things. But, like, when these sudden deaths happen, it really puts things into perspective. And so, you know, to segue into like how that grief has impacted our lives, you know, like I'll go first, like when it comes to Shawn. So, you know, Shawn and I had, well, you guys know, Shawn and I had a interesting relationship, 16 years apart. So we didn't have that traditional grow up together brother sister relationship. And he went to prison when I was 8, and he was he was everything to me when he went to prison, because of the three of us, Mark, Shawn, Winnie, Shawn was like the most vocal, the most popular, I guess. So everyone was always like, you're just like Shawn, oh, Shawn's little sister. So like Shawn was like this, I don't know, mystical type figure in my life. So he went to jail when I was 8, and then by the time he came out, I was a preteen, I was a teenager actually. And we just never had that closeness. And then of course, I did a pack of dumb shit Sorry. I did stuff.
It's not authentic.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I did stuff that and his reaction to the stuff that I did created more distance. And so it was only in the 5 years preceding his death that we had came to a place where we had an actual loving relationship. And so to lose that, it gutted me. I was like, no effing way. I just got my brother back in my life. And what? And then of course, suicide is hard to accept. I mean, y'all know I was Nancy Drew. I was trying to, they should have hired me. Bermuda Police Service should have hired me to figure out what happened to my brother because, I was on a mission. But, the feelings that the loss prompted in me was so much regret. Yeah. The times that I weren't speaking to him. The things that I had said, to him, about him during our estranged years. So much regret. Regret for not taking enough pictures with him. Regret. I remember thinking, did I tell him I love him? Because he was at my house 1 week before he died.
Yes, that night that we were all there.
Yeah, we were all there. And we had a great time. But to this day, I'm like, did I tell him I love him when he was walking out the door?
Yeah, for me, it's the same thing. I have 2 memories that just stick with me. Because a couple of days before that event at your house, right. I saw him. So where I work, I was walking and I was in a rush to a meeting. So I was at one building going to another building for a meeting. And I left later than I wanted to. I was speed walking. And Uncle Shawn never yells. His very...
He is not yelling across the street. He is not that present.
He yelled across the street to me. He was like, Salida. And so I stopped. I was like, that's not Uncle Shawn. I'm like, hi, Uncle Shawn. Right? But I just wish I would have crossed the street because I was in a rush, right? So I didn't cross the street. I was like, hi, Uncle Shawn. I had my hair in a plait. He's like, you look like Granny. We had a literal conversation across the street. And that is so out of character for both of us, because both of us are not the type of people to yell
across the street.
And to speak to somebody, I'm more the person. If I see you and you're far away, I'll catch you later. Yeah. And he was similar, right? So the fact that he yelled out to me shocked me, and I never let myself live that down. That I didn't cross the street and give him a hug. It was my second last chance to do that.
But how would we have been?
You gotta give yourself grace, because how could we have
Every time I walked past it, because he was coming out of the lawyer's office.
Chancery.
Yeah. And every time I walk past there, and it's somewhere I walk past frequently because it's in between tall buildings, it's like I stop and pause. I pause there every time. And it's like I've taken a moment for him every time I pass there because I didn't take long enough moment on that day.
And it's so weird because Skylar, my son, he was 5 at the time when Shawn died, and even he processed that grief and had a level of regret. So once I told him, he was 5, so obviously it was hard to really navigate. But I remember a few days after we told him, he said, Mommy, do you think Uncle Shawn was mad at me because I didn't play checkers with him at the barbecue? So we had that barbecue. And because it was so many people, Skylar was there and he was learning how to play checkers. And he was playing checkers with somebody else. And I think Shawn might have made some type of gesture to play too. I don't know. But he didn't play with Shawn. And I remember even at 5, it was wow, that was my last opportunity, to do something with my uncle. And so just that regret that comes.
And on the lines of we didn't know, I think that's where I got a lot of comfort in my faith, because God knows the bigger picture. God knew what was about to happen. God allows things to happen. But with Ezzy, the night before Ezzy passed, so the very last time we saw Ezzy, it was Salita's baby shower, and he came to get free food and to help us.
It was
set
like
up.
2 days, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it was literally the day after.
It was the day after.
The night before he passed was Salita's baby shower, and literally, like, all of our family was together. Majority of our family was together, and a lot of people.
Crazy.
I know. I thought it was similar from Shawn.
Uncle Shawn, like,
and
was
then
all together.
the barbecue was all together. So like, I thank God that I at least had that like last memory with both of them, and what kind of like how those two very, very deep experiences of loss and grief did for me was dig deeper. Cause for Ezzy, dig deeper in my faith, like on a non-superficial level. Like with Ezzy, it was okay. Ezzy had like literally had this crazy intimate relationship with God before his passing. When my auntie went into his room for the first time, his Bible was open on his bed. Like him and God had this beautiful relationship, and like I just feel confident that I'm gonna see Ezzy again. So for me, it was like I want to be there too. Like I wanna be there too. So that kind of deep dived into wanting to have a more intimate, intentional relationship with God. And then what Uncle's passing did for me was awaken my need to challenge. Because in faith you have this stigma against suicide that if you are the reason why you took your life, you won't be there. And like the name that God put into my heart was Samson. Like God said Samson. And then at Uncle's memorial, when Chaplain Santucci was praying, he also said Samson. But even before that, I had like, when God put it in my heart here, because that was like my first thought, but it's suicide. What does that mean? So God put in my heart here, Samson. And I went home and I literally read that story like back to back. And I was like, it resonated deeply with me in this topic. And then I went and talked to 2 pastors about my understanding of what I was reading. And then I had that like confirmation when Chaplain Santucci had brought up Samson. And some people in the church or just in circles didn't necessarily still see it the way I saw it, but it was my step in trusting that the Holy Spirit was leading me and guiding me in truth when I study. And it really deep dived my relationship into a more intentional, a more personal, first person experience, me, God, and the Bible. Like, why do, again, I believe in what I believe in because of my experience. And that loss with Ezzy definitely like started that, and then Uncle's passing just really my search, my seeking became so much more intentional after that.
Yeah, I think we have a similar experience. I think death is so powerful and it definitely evokes change. My first experience with death, that was, we were very fortunate to only have like older people pass in our life.
Yeah.
Great grandparents.
Yeah, but for me the first one was Kellen when I was in high school. And that moment was like, life is short, Salita.
Kellen,
that was awful, because even how he died, it was like, I can't imagine. And I was with him the night before, and my mom and I ended up going to his house, so we were always cracking jokes and everything, and it's just crazy. You see somebody one night. He died that night. And like, who would have thought? Like, when he was walking out the door saying goodbye, I was not thinking that he was gonna die that night, right? That really impacted me when I found out. I just cried for the longest time. And I mean, we weren't as close as other people were. But it really made an impact on my life. And then Ezzy was the next one. And like you said, Ezzy, I can see why God picked Ezzy to go. I feel like he was very deep in his relationship with God, but I can't imagine any other family member's life being taken that suddenly, being so impactful to our family.
I agree.
Everybody turned to God.
Everybody.
So many people.
What a powerful legacy, Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it was very impactful. His dad brought a lot of people to Christ. And, that may have been of
His purpose.
Yeah.
That actually brought me a lot of comfort with Uncle as well, because Uncle was very specific in his send-off. And he was like, I don't want a state funeral. I don't want it to be at the cathedral. I want it to be at my home church.
I want Damon.
I want Damon. I want it at Southampton.
I want these
South-
songs.
Yes. I want this choir. And it's like, how many thousands of people tuned into Uncle's funeral because of who he was, and how many seeds were planted. And like that, when God like revealed that to me, I felt the need to share that with Papa. Like, you know, the life of a righteous person still bears fruit. And I feel like Uncle's life and Azzy's life is still bearing fruit because of how, you know, and then Romans 8:28, all things work together for the good of those who love God. Uncle proclaimed that he had love for God, and Azzy was in that space, and their life that was lived is still being used for the good, I believe.
I agree, yeah. And Uncle's life definitely impacted me with purpose.
Yeah.
I think Uncle's death was the epitome for turning my pain into purpose, because that's when I really started to live my life for me. And like you said, I became more bold. And I'm a very introverted person.
Yeah.
And it's very rare that I share my opinion. I'm always the quiet person in the room. But I definitely became more vocal about what I felt was right. And the song that I sent you guys after he died, I'll Rise Up, it's empowered me. His death empowered me to rise up and make a difference in the world, because I think he made a difference.
Yes.
And he was bold.
He was unapologetically bold.
I'm trying not to get all like mush-bally, but
Get mush-bally, girl. Get mush-bally.
Just listening to you guys talk about how his death impacted you, you know, and what you shared about it bringing people to God. No, you know, we're not going to get into faith in this episode. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Because, you know, my faith is different.
Yes.
And I believe it's equally valid.
Yes.
But I struggled so much with even saying out loud, this right here, this moment is the first time I have said like this, that my brother commits suicide. I've shared it in private, you know, conversations before. Of course, when we announced his death and I had to do that statement for the media, it was implied, but I would not say the words. I told everybody I ain't saying it because I didn't believe that.
Yeah, I'm the same.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't believe that, but you know, whatever. And then once at a actual event for people who had lost people to suicide, I led a meditation, and that was like, I guess the first time I talked about it publicly. But like, this is the first time that like I'm saying it, and I feel peace, because I struggled so much with like, I do not want my brother's legacy to be suicide, because suicide is associated with weakness. Suicide is associated with, you know, how, like, you know what I mean? Like the unpardonable sin and, you know, all this stuff that is completely untrue. Suicide is associated with mental health. And, you know, it's been a journey of me coming to a place of understanding that, one, he made a choice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And two, his legacy isn't limited to that choice. You know, and I was always like just so passionate about his legacy being more than that. And for me, his death, like you guys, it was something that faith was wrapped up in it. But like at the time that he died, I did not know what I believed. I had left my traditional, you know, religious beliefs, but I hadn't arrived in a different place yet, and it was hard. I remember being at the grave, and I was just like, I don't know what the hell happens after this. Like, like, I don't know. And so most people around me had, a hope of, reunited in heaven. I didn't know what I believed. Was heaven a thing? Like, it was so challenging. And so what that experience did for me was make me want to search too. And my searching was different from you guys searching, but it made me want to search for God, because I was like, I need to understand this, and now, like I said, that's a different conversation and we will have that another time. Now I have a better understanding of God, a better relationship with God. And a lot of that has to do specifically with losing someone and just wanting to know, like, what next? Like, I remember I asked a friend, like, so I'm never gonna see him again. I'm never gonna experience him again, and she had her own views on life after death, which I do not agree with today. But it was the catalyst to make me want to figure out my spiritual wellness. Yeah. Because that space of, like, I was absolutely shattered because I just didn't know. Mm-hmm. And I think about that Bible text that talks about, like, mourning. You don't have to mourn as if you have no hope. Mm-hmm. And that's how I mourned.
Which is so much harder.
Yeah.
That's how I mourned. I was like, this is it. Like, you know what I mean? This is it. And it was really hard. But yeah. So, sorry, that was an aside. But, like, back to, like, just how we turn that pain into purpose and what the death means. Like, so for me, I hadn't lost anyone. I don't want to say anyone close. Like, I lost Granny, Granny for a bit, but she was 92.
Suddenly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She was 92. It did feel a little sudden. And with Granny, she was in the hospital for like 6 months. So it was like sudden, but not. Like, the sudden part was, I didn't think it was going to be that day.
Yeah.
So like Nana would go to see her every day after work. And so this one day, I drove with Nana, but I was going through something else. And I chose not to go.
I was the same, and it was crazy because it was the same. Like, I'm like, she's gonna recover.
Yeah.
But because I was going off to university, so I was away, and I had the opportunity to see her real quick before I went, and I chose not to go because I had so much stuff to do before leaving. And that's the regret. Like, when my daddy called me to tell me I was away, I just broke down because it's that thing. It's like you need to take the opportunities to spend time with your
I actually, with Granny Rabbit, I did go to see her in the hospital. Mm-hmm. And I remember my friend Camille went with me, and I went in to see her, and I remember, like, she was saying that she was having pains in her leg, and she was like tapping, asking me to do something about it. And I called a nurse. And I was just, like, very overwhelmed with emotion because I'm like, she's in discomfort and I don't know how to help her and I really want to help her. And just seeing her in that way, I was like, okay, Granny, I'm gonna leave, but I'm gonna try to come see you. Mm. And I didn't know that
would be the last time.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like if I could have just, because I was on the verge of crying and I didn't want her to see me cry. Mm. And so I was like, maybe we could have toughed it out a little longer, held her hand a little longer.
She always liked to hold him.
Yeah.
You're walking around. She'll hold your hand for the whole story.
Yeah, the story that she's told so many times before. You can't even get over your hand. Yeah. But y'all, like, that night I didn't go in, and it was absolutely 100% selfishness. I was going to do dumb crap with my boyfriend at the time, and I just wanted to mope in the car. And the next morning, my mom woke me up. And she was like all teary-eyed and stuff. And then she told me, and I was like, crap, like, you should have been in. And the reason why I, just brought that up was that was my first experience with loss, I guess. And each loss that I've had, my most recent experience of loss was with my friend Kavina. And also, Canon Norman Linus, who I work with every day. But with all of them, there was this element of regret. And the reason why I keep coming back to regret is because that's what, for me, death teaches, is to be intentional.
Yes.
To be super, super intentional. Because the next moment, the next day isn't promised, right? And it's not promised for me, but it's also not promised for you or whoever. And so I need to be intentional with the choices that I make for my life and with my interactions with other people, because this could be my last opportunity to do such and such, or my last opportunity to impact somebody in a certain way. And so after losing Shawn, and after, just taking that time, because I went through a depression, and then after the depression, it was like that rise up moment. Like, okay, I gotta make this count. I got to, one, make this grief, make this loss have a positive meaning for me and my life. And two, I have to tap into what I think he had tapped into, which was purpose. He found it, right? He found his purpose. He connected with it, and
he also felt like he fulfilled it.
And that's what I was about to say. I was trying to think how I would place it. Like, he connected with that purpose, and then he fulfilled it, and then he had a peace. He knew, like, all right.
He was good with everything.
Like, I'm done.
At that time.
And that feeling, while I don't, want to be done, but that feeling of connectedness with myself and to my purpose, and that feeling of fulfillment was something that intrigued me. And I was like, I want to feel that way. I want to end each day feeling that way, feeling fulfilled, feeling connected to my purpose. I don't want to lose people and have regrets or regrets, period. You know what I mean?
Exactly, which was the same with me. The regret piece is important, and I think, this is where we can have the biggest takeaway for everyone. Because that time, I would have rather been 5 minutes late to my meeting and gotten an extra hug from my uncle. So take the time to do things that bring you joy. If I die tomorrow, my job will go on.
They'll replace you.
Yeah, exactly. So we need to enjoy the journey, express gratitude, be intentional about our actions and what we do for our time and the lifestyle that we want to create. Create it to what brings you joy.
Yeah.
Yes, and with all that said, I think the most important thing that helped us all get through that was that we had this.
We had each other.
We had this, like being able to call each other, cry, walk through it, talk through it, inspire each other. It really helped us get through all of those moments, and then encourage each other to keep going.
Definitely.
Family.
Yeah. So I guess that was a releasing chat. Like, we haven't had like a chat like this.
Yeah.
But it's June 10th. So I just wanna end by remembering the incredible person, the incredible contribution, the incredible life that is Shawn Crockwell, and in a way, express gratitude for having experienced him, and for the impact his life and his death had on the way we move forward now. We're here at this table
because of
being willing to share whatever our thoughts and feelings are because of who he was, and that's big. And so I just want to remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love you guys.